Hello and welcome to Love is Your Medicine podcast. I am Mitch Wright. Hope you're doing well. I'm thankful for you to come and see what I have going on at my podcast. None of this is like scripted or anything. I'm basically just like I did the intro. It was just a one take speaking what was on my mind and heart. And so that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing with this podcast, just speaking and talking. Just talking about my real life experiences, trials, things that I've been through, things that I've done. To go along with the theme of the podcast is, which if you listen to the intro or the trailer from my channel, is basically getting to love yourself, getting to that point where you realize that no matter what you've been through, and I'm speaking more things that might happen in a negative sense, no matter what we go through, we can't and we shouldn't let it define who we are as a person. We have to work on ourselves. We have to recognize things that have happened and not bury them deep, which I'll get into as this podcast continues with the different episodes. But we can't just file it away and try to forget about it. I did that, and that's what started the downward spiral of what I was digging myself into. And it affected not only myself, but those around me that I love, my family, spouse. And so I was thinking if I could help just one person going through this, to see that they're not alone, it would be well worth it to me. And so that's why I wanted to start this podcast. And it's funny that I've always thought about doing a podcast because I talk to a lot of people, and on my social media, I meet people, and I like to try to be like uplifting and motivating, inspiring on there, but in a genuine way. I just don't feed you a bunch of information or motivation and leave it at that. But most of the time I'll kind of tie it into my own life. Like, this is what I use to motivate myself. I'm working on this. I'm striving to do this. So I'm not only just trying to put it in front of people on my social media and tell them what to do or how to live, but this is something that I'm working on myself. So that's where my motivation comes from, the different posts that I do on social media. And I'll meet people just out running errands or at a restaurant eating with my wife. And, I'll have individuals come up to me, and at first it startles me, but they'll say, we're on Facebook together. It's so nice to meet you in person. I enjoy your motivation and your positive thoughts. And that's what I try to spread on social media. It's so much negativity and people downing everyone. We don't need all that. You can be a dark cloud, or you can just try to be uplifting and motivating to people. And not in a way that it's petty or not genuine. But, just saying, what I try to say is I understand we all have bad days. We all have bad ordeals, bad trials, but we just can't let that define us. And so I've always thought, what if I did a podcast? But then I'd be like, I don't know if anybody would listen to me. And so last week, my wife, she was talking to a coworker, and I used to talk with her and just try to motivate her. She wanted me to kind of push or gently nudge her to get things accomplished. So I helped her for about 2 weeks. And yeah, she reached out to my wife last week, and they were having a conversation. She asked how I was doing. I was very motivating to her, always positive. She was like, he really needs to have a podcast. And so my wife, Michelle, she told me, and I was like, I don't know. And what it was, honestly, and I'll talk about a lot of this in different episodes, but it was just my own fear. Like the fear of the unknown, the fear of how do I even get started. That's what was holding me back from starting it all this time. And so after I spoke with my wife last week, I was like, you know what? I'm going to look into this seriously. And that's what I did. One evening, I just looked up information. My wife was finding information, sending it to me. And I took the necessary steps. I found this nice website, and it just laid out what you should do step by step to start a podcast. And I did that, and here I am. So this is, I'm going to call this a preliminary episode, because on my social media, and you could find all my social media, like Facebook, is facebook.com/Love is Your Medicine podcast. And I've put out the launch date that I was going to start was December 4th, which I still am going to publish an episode Monday, December 4th. But I kept thinking over the weekend, I was like, I shouldn't just start going to it. I would really like my listeners to kind of know who I am, like where I've come from, where I've been, just so you can kind of get to know me before I really start getting into the main topic of my podcast. So like I said, my name is Mitch Wright. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. Great parents, came up in a wonderful upbringing. My family, I'll just put it like this, we're Christian and we're in a certain religion. So I was brought up a certain way, and I'll touch on that more in later episodes, but that molded my life a great deal. But my parents, great influence. They've been married for over half a century. So they were always a great example for myself and my siblings. So they gave us a good upbringing. My father worked for AT&T. We moved from his job moved us to different places. So born in 1970 in Chicago, when I was 13, his job relocated us to Houston, Texas. I tell people that's basically where I grew up, because those are my formative years. I spent age 13 to 19 in Houston. So a lot of great friends, a lot of great people we knew. I had a pretty fun teenage life, and I'll touch on more of that in different episodes. In 1989, my father's job moved us to Atlanta. And so that's where I came into young adulthood. Young, still learning a lot. Got married when I was 23 to my first wife. Yes, my first wife. That's subject to be a whole nother episode, because that plays into a lot of the theme of my podcast. A great deal. My thinking, my mentality, everything affected my first marriage. And so now I'm living in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, remarried to my wonderful wife, Michelle. Together we have a daughter. a little princess. I say little, but she just turned 16. In driver's ed. I'm a terrified father because your baby goes from that to now she's starting her first job in driver's ed or will have her driver's license soon. So yeah, good times. It's also a sign that I'm getting older, which I don't care. Age to me is just mental. It's all how you perceive it to be. You can go in it thinking, oh, I'm getting so old and, woe is me. But nah, I'm just like, it's another year of experience under my belt. Try to do what I can to stay right physically and just live day by day. Try to keep that positive attitude. Yeah, so age really doesn't bother me. I'm living in the Pacific Northwest. I do a lot of marketing online. I was in sales a great chunk of my life. I started sales like right out of high school and in my 20s and 30s. And I've had some great experiences. For example, I worked for Pepsi in Atlanta. And if you don't know, Atlanta is home of Coca-Cola. So yeah, I like challenges. So I worked for Pepsi in Atlanta's or in Coca-Cola's front yard. So very challenging, but also very rewarding for my hard work. So I like that. My parents, we had opportunity to live in different cities. I think each city, I think the friends I had, the city, the environment, the cultures, rounded out who I am. A big part of it did. Another huge part is the people and the relatives that had an effect on my life, whether it was positive or negative. So, there's that also. But I think that's how we're composed. It's our family and relatives, the environment we live in, our surroundings, all of that, slowly creates who we are, who we're going to become as an adult. And, like I said, we have negative things that happen to us, but it's up to us how we handle it. What do we do to overcome the negativity? I know a lot of people who they feel they're stuck. Certain things have happened to them, so they feel they're a product of their environment. But I also know a lot of individuals that have changed their lives. They didn't go down the path that was set for them, but they made their own way. They became their own individual. And so that had a lot to play in my life to think about. Did I always feel that way or think that way? No. That's why I'm part of the reason I'm making this podcast is because you get stuck in a rut sometimes mentally, and it blocks you from doing what you know you need to do. Or some, like I did, I buried things that happened to me early in life. I buried them deep inside of me. And it wasn't until I started taking different steps in my second marriage, by the way, with the help of my wife helping me and encouraging me, that I was able to step by step figure out what my deal was. I just thought this is who I was, the different actions and attitudes that I was showing. I just chalked it up to this is who I am. This is me. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And so that mentality alone, it really, really hurt relationships I had. And I'm not talking romantic, but just different relationships, whether it was family, friends, coworkers. That mentality that I had which was, before a person can hurt me or get to me, if I felt that was going to happen, then I got to them first. Like, you're not going to hurt me. I'm going to hurt you first, and then I'm going to drop you and leave you alone. And so that was my mentality through life. From a young age up to, oh my goodness, about 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, a huge chunk of my life, that's how I lived. Before you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you first. And it made me cold. It made me bitter. And at times I knew, that's not who I wanted to be. I was raised a different way, totally different way. Like I said, I was raised a Christian. And I dedicated my life to that at the age of 16. So I knew what I was supposed to be doing, how I was supposed to be treating people. But I wasn't fully living that way. So then I had the anger at myself because I'm not living how I knew I was supposed to be living. I have the anger because I would try to act like it didn't affect me, but deep down, I would be hurt at relationships that I hurt, or friendships I broke off, the way I treated people coldly. And, that includes, like I said in the trailer, that includes family, relatives, my spouse, my first spouse. That mentality affected that relationship a great deal. It affected my relationship with my son. Oh, by the way, so Michelle and I together, we have a daughter. But then from my previous marriage, I had a son. And then from Michelle's previous marriage, she had 2 sons. So when we first got together, we have 4 children. So I went from having 1 child to 4 eventually. So that in itself was a big hurdle and a big change, because who I was in my younger 20s and early 30s was totally different to who I became now. So I still had that mentality, that silly mentality that I mentioned a few minutes ago of, I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. I had that. I was very selfish. I was very prideful. A whole lot of things to work on, and like I said, I'm going to be totally honest, transparent with this podcast. I'm not here to, shine a light on me. I'm here to tell you who I am, what I've done, and I'm not perfect. No one's perfect at all. But I'm just here to share my life experiences. Hopefully, if it's something that touches you, something similar, something you're working on, hopefully you find benefit from this podcast. And feel free to reach out to me to ask questions, or, if you need me to explain something further in greater detail of something I've mentioned, I'm happy to do that. This is not only to help you or someone in need of help, but I think it'll also be good for me to just get this off my chest and just talk and express myself, because I do a lot of writing. And like when I went through something major a few years ago, I felt horrible, felt bad. And it wasn't until one night I just wrote this poem of how I felt and what I went through. And after I did that, I felt like so much better. So I figure, like, I'm in a good place now, mentally, but I figure if I express myself with this podcast, it couldn't hurt anything. And if I help individuals that go through things similar to what I've gone through, then that'll make me even happier to do that, to help someone. And keep in mind, when you're listening to different episodes, I'm not trying to give you professional help. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. So, this isn't that type of podcast where I'm going to try to give you some type of medical diagnosis or help. No, I'm just telling you straight up what's been going on in my life, what shaped me, how I came to certain points in my life, the results, and then how I started to change things around. And the big part of it was I was not happy with myself. Therefore, I didn't treat people nice around me. And yes, it's something I'm not proud of, but yeah, it hurt relationships, hurt friendships, it hurt family members. So I made the decision to find out what was wrong with me. What was I doing wrong? And just take a long, serious look at myself. And didn't like what I saw. And that's what I always used to tell Michelle and my kids. You can't really, truly love people how you should until you truly love yourself, until you're happy with yourself. And again, like I said in the trailer, that's not about being prideful or haughty or arrogant. It's just truth. If we're not happy with ourselves, or if we don't love ourselves, we get into a destructive lifestyle because you don't care about yourself. And whether it's physical, like if you're, it could be turning to food, it could be turning to alcohol, harder things like illicit drug use, living a promiscuous, just, careless lifestyle, whatever or however that translates. If you don't love yourself, that's what happens. You're not going to respect yourself. And if you don't respect yourself, how in the world are you going to respect other people or those around you, especially those who you care about and love? And, we need those relationships. The older I get, I really see that, you lose family and friends, and you think about things that you could have been doing, things that you should have been doing while they were around. But guess what? I lost out on a lot of that because I was in this self-destructive lifestyle and didn't keep proper relationships like I should have. So, these are the things you have to think about. And so with this podcast, the different episodes, I hope that I reach you. If you're going through something similar, again, you're not alone. If you take the necessary steps and you're honest with yourself, you're open with yourself. And I'll tell you the different steps that I took in future episodes. You can become better. You can do things better and have a brighter outlook on life. So that's pretty much it for episode 1, the introduction to Mitch. I really look forward to this, and I hope that I can help as many as possible. Just take a look at yourself, like I take a look at myself. And I'm not done. Getting better or bettering yourself that's a work in progress. It takes effort each and every day. So I am by no means finished, but like I said, I'm in a good place. mentally and emotionally and spiritually. So I look forward to future episodes. Reach out to me. If you have any questions, you can email me at mitch@themitchwright.com. And I would be happy to answer any questions or just to meet you and hear your story. So until next time, have a great day. Have a great week. Go and do great things.